coming.
Hello. I don't need it, I think. It's the translation.
Thank you.
Bonjour à tous et à tous. Bienvenue à cette table ronde culturelle.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this cultural roundtable. During the next 30 minutes, we are going to start a cross dialogue between those two women who wrote books regarding the cultural dialogue. And so I would like to introduce Fadia Fakir, an author from Jordanian, who wrote 4 novels. She's involved in the fight of women in the Arabic world, and she writes to testify and also to fight fear. Then on my right, we have Zineb Mekwara, who is from Morocco, who is very involved for more freedom for women in Morocco. Before we start the dialogue, I would like to talk about some of them common concerns. So first of all, the relationship with religions and what it means to live between the West and the Middle East, and also the link between tradition and modernity, and then also patriarchy in those countries, and also the inequalities between men and women in these countries. To start with, because we are in an intercultural dialogue, I would like to talk with you about the concept of the double identity. Fadia Fakir, you were born in Jordan. You studied in prestigious and universities, and your life is uh, mm, linked to the fact that you are between two cultures, two languages, two countries, and it's also one of the most important topic of your last novel. And I would like to know, what does it mean to live in between for you?
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for coming. It's raining outside, so all are welcome. I also would like to thank the sponsors for including women's voices in this very important dialogue. So it's nice for Arab women's point of view and perspective to be included. Thank you so much. Okay, in betweenness, it's a blessing and a curse. I call it a blessing and a curse because you see the country you left behind really clearly because you're not living it. And you see the country that you've adopted clearly because you live in it as an immigrant, as an outsider. So it's quite interesting how you see both cultures. And also, when you are writing, I am a post-colonial writer, writing post-colonial literature in the language of the other. So my position is quite interesting. So when you are doing that, you don't want to become a native informer, someone that gives ammunition to the Orientalists, to those who want to attack your culture. On the other hand, you don't want to become an appeaser and a propagandist. So you want to produce serious fiction and look at serious issues in a serious way without being, your writing being used and used out of context. So it's a fine line. It's a tight rope, and I walk it every day. Yeah.
Zineb Mekouar, vous également.
Zineb Mekouar, you were born and you were grown in Morocco. You studied in France, and in your first novel, The Hen and Its Cumin, your protagonist comes from studies in France, but she was born in Morocco, and in her pathway, she is like, it's programmed as she is due to love of France. So you are also a post-colonial writer. What can you tell us about those post-colonial relationships between France and Morocco? So thank you very much. I'm very happy, first of all, to be here in Italy, because I've been living in Italy for 1 year. I lived in Italy for 1 year. It is the book that will translate my my book, the first country to translate my book. So you will also have it in Italian. So well, there was a mistake with the names on the screen. I am Zineb Mekouar. And no, I'm not Eleonore. But anyway, thanks to the organizers, because it's a conference which is very interesting, and I'm very happy to be here with you. And as regards your question, Eleonore, well, it's true that in Morocco, for those of you who know Morocco, there is a French-speaking elite in Morocco, to which it seems that we know French, we love France, we speak French all the time. There are many French people in Morocco. At home, I speak in French with my parents and my grandparents. There is also a mix with Arab. But we have, when we went to France to live there, maybe just as you in England, we had the feeling that we already knew France, that we were not in a new country, that we were not going to discover a new country. And I was a bit shocked when I arrived in France, and this is what I wanted to show with my protagonist Kenza in the novel. It's that I was not expecting such ignorance from France regarding the countries that it had colonized. Because when I arrived in France, I had comments saying, "Are you from Morocco? Well, you know what? I have a friend who is Algerian." And then when I went to the United States, and they say, "Oh, you're from Paris. Well, you know what? I went to Italy last year." So Americans think that Europe is a small country. It's a bit the same in France as well, because they think that all the countries from the north of Africa are all the same, but actually they have different cultures. So this is what I wanted to have, typically a Moroccan title, which is La Poule et son cumin, which means the hen and its cumin, and it means that you can have everything. And it's based on a couple relationships. So maybe you'll have the opportunity to read this book in Italian in a few months, or in French, but I wanted to write about Morocco and not about Maghreb and all its cliche. Well, you were also talking about couple relationships, and one of the concepts which is in your novel is the idea of what we call patriarchal culture. And what do you think about it? And how are your two protagonists in their pathway? How do they define the relationship between men and women? Well, just to give you an idea of this novel, it's the idea of a friendship between two friends, Kenza and Fatira. So at the beginning, we can see a part of their childhood and how they became women, how we become a woman in Morocco, where abortion is forbidden, where relationship out of the marriage are forbidden. So this is what's written on the paper, but actually there is a paradox between the tradition and the contemporary world. There is a kind of hypocrisy. So Kenza and Fatira show two different Moroccos because Kenza is part of the Moroccan bourgeoisie, and then Fatira is the daughter of the cleaning lady. And we still have uh, a society that is divided in castes, and when you're part in the elite, sometimes we may think that women are more liberated, but we can see today that the relationship with the body, with the desire in Morocco is not it's quite complex, and it's hard to know how you can become a woman in such a country, and the answer is not so clear. And I also wanted to change this idea of what we always say, the Arabic woman, the Muslim woman, and all the cliches that are related to this. We only have women with their origins. Well, I feel Parisian, I feel Moroccan, I feel like I have many cultures. But I think that talking about the Arabic woman doesn't mean anything. Well, to talk about, well, maybe you have more experience, and what has changed in the recent years for women of the Arabic world, and maybe in Jordan and also in the Middle East. Do you agree with what Zineb just said? Do you see the same things?
First, patriarchy keeps me awake at night, all the way from the United States to Iran. Patriarchy is a challenge for women and for Arab women. What I try to do in my writing is to disrupt the master narrative, the male narrative, and lift women from the margins and put them in the center. Because I feel that their experiences were not documented, are not part of the dominant narrative. So I created all these women and their stories. The other thing is femicide, which I deal with in My Name is Salma. Imagine living with a sword above your head and it's gonna fall at any minute. And it is random justice and it is the law of the jungle. And when you are living in such conditions, you have to perform and live your life. And how do you do that? How do you do that? So I wanted to immortalize women by writing My Name is Salma and creating and dramatizing the story of a woman who is being pursued and is going to be killed for an alleged crime, for a crime of honor. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to hear the voices of the women who get buried without even the names on the graves. I want to see their names engraved one day in one of the squares. So yes, it is fiction and it has to be literary and it's got to be pleasing and it's got to be enjoyable, but it needs to do something.
Et par rapport justement à la situation de la femme.
And as regards the situation of women in Jordan or in the Middle East, do you think that there is an evolution, a development, maybe since you've been writing your book, My Name is Salma, have things changed?
Yes, I think things have changed. And it's interesting, the Arab world. If you look at the Arab world, there are pockets, there are socioeconomic variables. In some sections, women are doing very well. In other sections, women are going back. There are loads of issues. I mean, I don't know. One of the issues that I'm looking at, and I looked at for the United Nations, is how much we own. So this property does not own property, yeah? So I looked at the figures, and I can tell you there is an improvement. So about 30% improvement in ownership of businesses and property. So things are changing. And also there are fantastic women writers now coming out of Jordan and the Arab world. And I'd like to mention some of them. I'd like to mention Najwa bin Shatwan from Libya. I'd like to mention Kafa Zuabi from Jordan. And I'd like to mention Inam Kachachi, Iraq. So they are writing their own story. So self-representation is the key. And I remember in The Handmaid's Tale, when she clicked that pin and unleashed the words. It is important to click that pin and unleash the words.
Oui, bien sûr, Zineb, parce que la question aussi...
Yes, of course, because we also have the question of women emancipation in your novel. And well, I totally agree with what Fadia is saying, because literature allows to put people who are in the margin at the center of the story, and to show that we don't only have one story, but many stories. And I think that literature has a fundamental role in order to allow us to live together, because we are in this way we meet people that otherwise we would have never met. So why do I like novels? Because I live my life, the life of a young boy in Lima in Peru, and in this way I can understand what it means. Then I can live the life of the caste society in India, because I've read the book of Adim Rati Roy. So how can we intimately try to change our vision of the world? Because in this way we can be in their own shoes of the protagonists. So as regards emancipation in Morocco, I'm very optimistic, because after 10 years of Islamists that were governing the countries, now they have lost many seats, and now the youth in Morocco and Moroccans in general want to change the penal code, which is outdated, and also the civil code, which is outdated. And I think that there is a momentum now in Morocco, and I went to Morocco in June in order to promote my book, and I had no expectations. And when I arrived, I met many interesting people, and also many women who came after driving for 1 hour and say, "Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed your book. I feel less lonely." Or men who said that they bought this book for their daughters, but also for their sons. And it shows that we are talking about something that is very contemporary and very intimate. And I really hope that things will change, and I know that things will change, because civil societies are doing a lot. When we talk about women emancipation, we can also talk about it, and they are a very important topic in your book. I would like to know, what are the relationships of your protagonist with the religion in those secular countries? And for instance, in your book, Willow Trees Don't Weep.
Thank you for that question. I just want to say, Zainab, that I totally agree with what you said about Moroccan women, and it applies to Jordanian women, because the penal code is being changed. Things are changing. Change is coming. Maybe not soon enough. As for religion, because it's a quite sensitive subject, I tackled it in a different way. In My Name is Salma, you have the two extremes. You've got a missionary Christian who takes her out of the country to save her life and tries to impose her own vision on Salma. And when she arrives in the UK, she meets a Quaker priest, inclusive, not priest, but a Quaker, inclusive, kind, understanding. What I wanted to show are the two extremes, the missionary vis-a-vis the true believer. And in Willow Trees Don't Weep, I went further because I have an Islamist who is muta'aslim, using religion for political reasons. That's one. Then the true believer, the grandmother, the sincere believer, the kind, the inclusive, the spiritual woman. And then the mother who actually reacted against the father leaving to pursue his dreams, basically becomes a terrorist. I wanted the title to be The Terrorist's Daughter, but the British publishing establishment couldn't deal with that. So they went for Willow Trees Don't Weep, so you can buy it at the airport. So my name, Fadia Fakir, and Terrorist's Daughter, no. Richard Smith, Terrorist's Daughter, perfect. What happens to the women that are left behind when someone goes and joins a cause? So the wife becomes completely secular, against religion, and starts setting fire to all the books related to theology, to Islam. What I wanted to show is that tension between the three. And believe you me, if you go to Arab houses, not all Arab houses, you would find a similar tension, similar dialogues. So the dialogues are happening, but representing them and writing about them is so dangerous. You get penalized. So you don't encounter many secular characters in fiction. But I wanted to do that in a kind of, again, not a native informer, but someone who really loves the country, loves the people, and is writing out of love.
Merci. Vous, Zineb, il y a une autre grande idée qui traverse votre roman.
So for you, there is also another idea in your book, that is to say social inequalities within Morocco. And even if the society is becoming more and more modern, it is still very strict. So in your book, we have two different heroes. And how would you like to define the different class relationships in Morocco, and what is it necessary to do in the future? I wrote this book because I wanted to show that Fadia represents what really happens within the different households in Morocco. And we can find the same concept of shuma, that is to say, the shame, social shame. And I frequently say that the point of view, the vision of the author is like the vision of a child, because we don't only stop to violence, social violence and pain. When we become adult, we tend to have a different vision. I don't know if you've ever visited Casablanca in Morocco, but there are some kids, when I used to go back there, giving me some candies and chewing gums. And in my mind, I was just able to think, well, I could be this guy, but I was lucky enough, actually, not to find myself in the same situation. And so I decided to base my story actually also on this personal experience. And I do not remember the second question, what it is necessary to have in order to have more equality? Well, maybe a greater number of authors and writers. and a greater awareness, because there is also a kind of vision in Morocco that is full of wisdom, but sometimes we just say, okay, it is what it is. I cannot do anymore. And this is not totally positive, because in one passage of my book, I say that there is this girl having a love affair with a Spanish doctor. And I write in the book, we can do whatever we want with our lives. So where we born, and when we born do not define who we are and what we want to be. So especially women in Morocco, do not understand actually that they can do whatever they want with their lives, that there are no obstacles, let's say. And thanks to literature, we can also change this point of view. So unfortunately, we don't have more time right now. So I can just encourage you to read, actually, to read these two different books. And thank you so much for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated as we start the next session right away. Thank you.
Ovaj će Martin doći na francuskom.